Star Wars 7x7, episode 2278. So last week we briefly talked about the idea of a Mandoverse, and I wanted to explore that a little more with you today. Punch it. Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod, and this is Star Wars 7x7, your daily dose of Star Wars joy. And thank you so much for joining me for it. So, the idea of a Mandoverse is the idea of a series of interconnected stories that start with The Mandalorian at its base. And we talked about this last week with it being an idea similar to the Arrowverse, which is the series of interconnected DC comic-related TV shows on the CW. And this would be as opposed to, say, a Marvel Cinematic Universe, because, you know, that's all cinema, right? But it's the same kind of idea. It's a bunch of series that are interconnected and could lead to one bigger storytelling possibility. So we're going to talk about what that bigger storytelling possibility could be, but before we get to that, we're going to start talking about other series that could be involved in this endeavor. And there is a basis in reality for this. It's not entirely rumor and speculation. I'll start off by saying that Bob Iger himself previously said in one of the Disney investor calls that they are looking at The Mandalorian and looking at characters that are in The Mandalorian and the possibility of spinning them off in a new series. But who those characters are, that we don't yet know. It's rumored, of course, that Rosario Dawson is going to be appearing in Season 2 of The Mandalorian as Ahsoka Tano. That would be one potential character who could spin off into her own series. Another character who is rumored to potentially have his own series is Ezra Bridger from Star Wars Rebels, and that rumor seems to be matched with Thrawn, Grand Admiral Thrawn from Rebels and from all of the books and so on and so forth. So, you know, whether Thrawn is involved or not, I guess could be an open question, because yes, we still have to resolve the end of Star Wars Rebels when Thrawn and Ezra both disappeared off into the wild blue yonder. But in thinking about this particular time period, I mean, that was, you know, a couple of years before the Battle of Yavin, and now we are 9-10 years ahead of that, right? So all the Chiss are on the entire opposite side of the galaxy from where the events of The Mandalorian are happening. So it, strikes me as unusual to consider that Thrawn would be a part of the Mandoverse. But, if there is an idea about Ezra and Thrawn in a series being out there for that, well then, why not just consider Ezra a possibility for being involved in this Mandoverse after he gets away from Thrawn, assuming he gets away from Thrawn. I mean, after all, Ahsoka and Sabine are heading off to find him as of 4 ABY, right after Return of the Jedi. So at some point, maybe they would have found him, which then brings us to the other character, Sabine Wren, right? There have been rumors kicking around about Sabine, but nothing as definitive as, say, the rumors about Ahsoka or the rumors about Bo-Katan, which we'll get to in a moment. But I guess it stands to reason with the fact that the last we saw of both Sabine and Ahsoka in 4 ABY at the end of Rebels is that they were off together looking for Ezra, and so there's no reason to think that they have discontinued their friendship, their partnership, whatever working relationship they have and whatever they're working on right now. Yeah, it seems like it's entirely possible. And then, of course, there are the rumors of Tamura Morrison showing up in the cast, which leads to questions of whether he'll be playing Boba Fett or Rex, or perhaps both of them. Timothy Olyphant has been cast also, and rumors are kicking around that he's Cobb Vanth, who is the guy who found Boba Fett's armor inside a Jawa sandcrawler in one of the interludes in the Aftermath novels by Chuck Wendig. I don't necessarily think that we're going to have a Cobb Vanth series, potentially, but the possibility of a Boba Fett series, that one, I don't know how I feel about that one particularly. I feel like that's kind of an interesting idea, but it feels like it almost takes away from The Mandalorian. We're almost at the point where, The Mandalorian is The Mandalorian, and if you bring Boba Fett into all of this, then I think you kind of have to differentiate him in some manner. Like, you have to tie his history more to the clones and to Jango Fett than to, the actual idea of Mandalore, or to bounty hunters, and maybe he's a rival bounty hunter or will become that somehow. Wouldn't that be interesting in its way? Spinning back to Bo-Katan, who is going to be played by Katie Sackhoff, or was voiced by Katie Sackhoff, and is rumored to be appearing in The Mandalorian, and also played by Katie Sackhoff. Did that confuse you? Sorry about that. So that's another situation where could you derive a series involving that particular character? I think all of these are possible, and I think that if this is the case, it would be heading toward one very specific end point, and I will tell you what that is. And first, I want to check in with our friends at Audible and remind you of the Audible free audiobook download and free 30-day trial you get at sw7x7.com/audible. And I'm sure there are a bunch of Mandalorian books from Legends if you want to brush up on your Mandalorian history, whether it's going to hold or whether it's going to change. I don't know, but there's some good stories in the old expanded universe, now Legends, and you can use that Audible credit for any of those or any of the new canon stuff. Free audiobook download, free 30-day trial, sw7x7.com/audible, which also helps support the show here. Thank you very much for considering it. So with Moff Gideon operating as the regional governor around this general vicinity, and the fact that he has the Darksaber, it suggests, as we've said on the show, that he is currently the ruler of Mandalore. And so it occurs to me that a logical endpoint for multiple seasons of The Mandalorian, mixing in Sabine Wren and Bo-Katan and possibly Boba Fett, but also possibly Ezra Bridger and even other characters that we don't yet know about, a logical endpoint could be that this all revolves around freeing Mandalore from the Imperial remnant that's being ruled by Moff Gideon and turning Mandalore over back to the Mandalorians. You already have this idea being seeded with the Mandalorian covert that was on Navarro. Mandalorians hiding out for what reason? Well, it would be a sensible reason that Mandalore is not safe for them, and so at some point Mandalore has to be taken back from the Empire, and this could be a logical, big scope idea that a bunch of series could lead to, with The Mandalorian as the primary series telling this story. And just for fun, I'll even mention that after the first episode of The Mandalorian from Season 1, I did an episode here on Star Wars 7x7 where I posited the possibility that the Mandalorian himself is Force sensitive. So, yeah, I'm gonna kick that up to the top of your mental inbox and see if anything about that shows up in Season 2. But for now, that's going to do it for this episode of the show. Thank you so much for joining me for it, as always. And may the Force be with you, wherever in the world you may be.
Star Wars 7x7 is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2020 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.